Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Decloak podcast. And yeah, this is a special episode for the Founders Series, and my good friend Arie Zilberstein is joining us today. And for those who don't know who Arie is, Arie is the CEO and co-founder of Gemsecurity, who exited recently for a reported 350 million to Wiz. Welcome, Arie. For anyone who doesn't know anything about Wiz and Gem, give me a kind of brief overview of these products. Yeah.
Sure. And first of all, thank you, Leo, for inviting me to this podcast. Really happy to be here and continue to work together with you. Like Leo said, Arie Zilberstein was one of the founders of GemSecurity. And GemSecurity is really all about cloud detection response, the way we build that from inception. Personally, before starting Gem, I was doing and spending many years in security, both security offensive side, but also security operations. And especially on the security operation incident response side, we felt that companies finding hard times to respond to breaches in the cloud. And the idea of how to respond to a breach in the cloud, what is similar, what is different, was the inception of how Gem was built and some of the principles upon Gem built. And that was the focus of the company, how to be prepared to a breach and how to respond to a breach. And that was all what was Gem is about.
Nice, I like it. And then we'll dig right into a section about the background and inspiration of Gem. And I really like to kind of dig into the components, the methodology, and the kind of ideation when it comes to the founders that we have on the podcast. And, talk me through like what was the spark or the aha moment that led you to start your company? Was there kind of like a catalyst or some sort of like knock on the head and then you're like, haha, that's it, I'm going to build Gem?
So actually, there was a kind of aha moment. And like I said, my background just before starting Gem was in the IR field, incident response. I always said that incident response is the best place you want to be in if you want to see what is broken in the world, because you get to a scene where everything is broken, where attacker got in, and there's a mess in the organization, and you want to really understand what's wrong. And in these situations, I had the aha moment of how organization look like when a breach is happening, specifically in the cloud. Like whenever it happens, a breach happens in on-prem, you know what to do, you know what products you need to operate, you know what you need to do from zero to an end. But in the cloud, whenever we got to a case where a company was breached in the cloud, we felt that there is no clarity on what to do, where the company is prepared. And a few of these cases that I dealt with in the past were the inception point, were the aha moment around, well, we need something quite different. We need a different approach and better clarity, simplicity into dealing with these situations. That was the aha moment.
Nice, I like it. And then who were like some of your biggest influences and mentors when you were starting out?
So actually, gladly, in the Israeli community of founders, there are so many characters and people, mentors that helped, both to look up to in terms of, you can actually build a company, provide value, drive value, etc. So I wouldn't name any specific individual, apart from the fact that I'm so grateful for many mentors, friends, former founders and investors that were part of the journey that influenced the way I think we thought in terms of how to build this company.
Nice. And I think, unless people are living under a rock, I think Israel is absolutely renowned for its excellence within cyber capability and also has an amazing community. So, yeah, I mean, you could probably be here all day with like 1,000 names of people that have either been part of that journey and definitely helped you. And, kind of like going back a bit more, like when you were younger as a kid, what were the things what did you want to be when you were a kid, and how did that evolve into starting a company?
It's funny. I think that every kid wants to do some crazy, dreamy stuff, like
Yeah.
want to fly, want to stuff like that. Actually, it's funny because fly with cloud, etc. But I think as a kid, I just had big dreams, doing things that are big, doing things that would make an impact and be influential. Maybe not in these words exactly, but as a kid, you just dream big. And I think throughout my career, being about a decade in military service and then going to Signia, incident response, etc., I was always looking to get involved in things that made impact. And I think building your own company is something that takes that to another level of doing that your own, getting value from zero to like creating something from zero to a lot. And that is something that I was dreaming of since I was not quite a kid, but as it evolved in my career to the understanding that I do want to build a company. I want to achieve kind of a bigger dream.
Yeah. It's funny, like I've asked some people this, and it's went from everything from being like, I don't know, a supervillain to being like Batman, or literally like building a company by, whether it's by design or by accident. And I think, it's good that people can follow those dreams and build it into something. For our audience that are listening at the moment, I'm sitting in, I believe it's the new Wiz office in New York, and by God, it's impressive. And obviously Gem have become part of that family as well, and it's good to see that kind of progressive growth. And we'll dig into maybe things in the future as well. But anyway, yeah, I digress. So was there any particular problem or challenge you wanted to solve with your business? I think you might have touched upon that earlier, but was there like a specific use case you felt, well, this is going to give us like maximum, market retention, or yeah.
So I think, I earlier touched on the point on breaches, cloud preparedness, and how companies can be ready for a breach in the cloud. But taking that into like more technical use cases, when you think about security organization and how security organization meets cloud transformation, there are many parts in the organization that are going through this transformation. That's the part that the infrastructure needs to evolve with more guardrails, and there's a part of security operation needs to be more prepared. And I think we touched in a particular problem statement that most companies, vendors didn't touch, which is how the security operation part, the SecOps, the SOC, the SIEM, all of these spaghetti of technologies deal with what's happening when the cloud is introduced. And we found that most traditional technologies fell short in dealing with the high volume of logs, with the noise that cloud environments introduce, with the need to write your own detection and have a long wish list of detection that you want to cover for threats that are coming in the cloud. So a number of these use cases and challenges that SecOps teams have when cloud is introduced, and we tackled each one of those in a way that is very actionable, very accurate. So it's, again, the bigger story is how you can be ready for a breach in the cloud. The small story is how you can help SOC teams, incident response teams, do the work better, faster, and make them smarter when they're introduced to the cloud.
I think context is key. As you said, it's a bit of a spaghetti with multiple different products, giving you different kind of telemetry, and some products, which I won't name, require a lot of manual overhead. And I think that's a kind of really good market strategy and proposition to kind of make life easier for everyone, because when it comes to an incident, it's absolute chaos unless you have some sort of control. So, but moving into like the early days of Gem, and what were the early days of the company like? Do you have any like funny or memorable moments?
So early days were pretty funny in the sense that a company is being built out of really nothing. What's a company? A company is three founders with big dreams and some ideas about what we want to achieve, and then going to do so many things to make it a really big company. So I don't have a particular funny moment out of that, but it's just imagine sitting in a small room, three people, having ideas, trying to get these ideas in front of the reality, in front of customers. It's like it's just being very, very small before it gets to a real company. What's a real company like? So I know, I just remember the early days being in that room, three of us, and then four of us, and then five of us, and then very, very gradually, becoming a real company. That's I think it's pretty funny.
Yeah, I think obviously with every company, it's an absolute grind in the early days, and I think when you're coming out of stealth, I believe you guys, was it year 3 or was it year 2 that Gem was acquired? Was it?
It was the end of the end of second year of the since the inception of the company.
That's incredible. Yeah. I might add like a full-on sound effect there when I went, but but yeah, I mean, I think that's testament to obviously the hard work, a good product, a good marketing strategy obviously helps. You've seen this with Wiz. Their marketing strategy at the moment is absolutely on point, and shout out to Wiz, obviously, for allowing us to be here today. But yeah, they, I think some people really, don't really look back on memorable stories. They just like want to get to the finishing line. You know, they want to get a product out there and meet with multiple different customers. And I think, yeah, you should always kind of take stock. And I mean, this is a kind of general question of people in the kind of early infancy. And, you know, I remember working at a startup and they always took pride every quarter of like what was the biggest achievement. Then at the end of the year, they'd have this massive board and they kept it and they made it into a book. So when you left the company, you would have that book of memories. And I think that's pretty cool. So who knows, maybe you adopt
This is pretty
that.
cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, how did you come up with the company name, and were there any alternative names you considered?
Well, we had a strategy of how to pick a name. Like we need to maybe be A, so it's, you know, it appears first in the list, or we had some parameters, but eventually, you know, just somehow we got to the name Gem. Actually, initially with J because it felt like it sounded good, like jam, music type of thing. But then eventually, you know, we found Gem a really, really compelling name for maybe one or two reasons. One, it's very short, it's memorable, it's playful, meaning that we can really build a world of connotation and a world of association coming with that, which is like we said that we take the logs, we gemify that. The people we hire are gems. Like we had a really world of, you know, a lot of imagination using the word in describing what we do from professionally, but also in terms of people and the gems that we have. So we wanted the name to be playful and wanted to represent something that means something for the company, and Gem pretty much aligned with that. It's, you know, we're protecting crown jewels, which are gems. Gem is kind of a combination of resilience, like the material itself, as well as represents some prestige, which is like something fine as our UX and as the experience of people using with the product. So it's a combination of a few things, but probably we just liked the name and found justification as opposed to, you know, these are the parameters and, you know, Gem is a good word for that.
I really like that thought process. It really adds a kind of a layer of identity and association of like your brand, what you're actually trying to do, the metaphors and analogy behind it. And it's amazing. Some of the founders that I've spoke with, some of the concepts and ideas they've come up with were so far left field from what they actually finalized. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, do you think things would have been different if you spelt it with a J instead of a G?
You know, who knows? I think we picked right. I think we had the right decision.
I just thought I would throw a curveball in there. But yeah, I wonder if you could share a story about a time when something went wrong early on and how you handled it. I think I'm asking this question because obviously you're the CEO, you know, the whole idea of Gem is about resilience, and, you know, so I'm interested to hear about when it went wrong early on.
Yeah, so I think that it's funny, but, you know, maybe from outside things look easy, but from the inside, everything with a startup is hard. And you keep doing the wrong things every day, you know, the right and the wrong things every day. So I think that almost every week we had the wrong story coming over, whether it involves, you know, people we wanted to hire and it didn't work out, whether it involved customer we wanted to please and he wasn't so happy. Let me think of a specific story, but eventually, you know, we had cases that we wanted to impress, we wanted to, you know, to please a customer early on with a limited set of capabilities that we have, and, you know, eventually we sell the vision, not only the current set of capabilities, and not always it meets the expectation. So in many cases, you need to really manage it, you know, a really good balance between setting the right expectation, high expectation to the visions, really good expectation to what to get right now, and manage disappointments on what you can deliver, you know, on each one of these interactions. I think sometimes we did have really bad responses to whether we connect with a massive enterprise environment and it fails, and we need to react to that very, very fast. So it's I think to me the most memorable parts of where we did it wrong were with customer interaction, where we wanted to perfect that. And yes, we had a lot of cases where we were wrong in how we dealt with that. But I think the most important part is to try, fail fast, improve, and get to a different process that would work best. So I don't have one, I have plenty of these, stories of what went wrong, how we didn't come prepared to a call, and that really meant that we need to come way more prepared to every call that we go to a customer and then get a lot of compliments of how we are way more prepared than any other company they work with. So I think we have a lot of wrong stories that we turn them into a really good blessing.
Yeah, and I think there's some really sage advice in there as well about, failing fast and learning from it. And listen, I think nothing's perfect, but I think it's important. And I think with my interaction with you guys is always you listen, and then you put things, you make things move quite quickly. And I think, again, testament to the good people that obviously you've got working there. But yeah, moving specifically into like challenges and successes, I really like this section of the episode because I get to ask you, what's the biggest risk that you've taken with the company, and how did it turn out?
I think plenty of risk. First of all, building a company is a huge risk you take. Always was on my mind that you sell the dream of the company to so many people, to investors, to your own employees, and honestly, me as a founder CEO, I feel this risk every day when I wake up. That is the risk that we take. I think that is broadly a day-to-day feeling that you feel that you're on a risky spot in almost every decision you make. I think the first point where you feel that you take the risk is when you shake hands, founders, this is good, you haven't yet taken the risk. But when you shake hands with investors, take the risk of money, like you are being fundraised, you do fundraising, you get money, the company worth a certain amount, you take a big risk to actually live up to the valuation, to the dream that you sold. And that is a risk that is an ongoing risk that you go to sleep with, wake up with, and you need to deal with on the day-to-day. I think, honestly, the biggest risk is raising money, having a large valuation over the company, and needing to prove and build value and build this value over time. Another risk that we took is could be a risk. I saw it as an opportunity, is onboarding, for example, go-to-market people earlier, which is selling the product even before it was ready and mature. It was initially perceived as a risk. I think that ultimately it was an excellent kind of way to seize momentum because we knew exactly what we're doing. But again, other people thought that's a very risky, a waste of money, etc. And we thought that is the right approach to how to go to market and how to not build things in a box, but rather expose things as fast as possible to what's happened in the reality with go-to-market engine already built.
Nice. And then what's the one failure you experienced that turned out to be a blessing in disguise?
So I think I mentioned briefly that earlier. That's our appetite to work with enterprise customers. Many companies won't do that at first. They want to try out the product at a cloud native company, a small scale company, to see that it actually works. We went for like all in from the start. We worked with some massive enterprises from finance and from other I'd say verticals, like massive enterprises. And I think at once when we connected, the product actually failed, like it crushed. But I think that was a massive learning point because very early in the journey, we turned that failing in the technology into something that just succeeded. And then starting of that point, after a day or two that we actually fixed that, we made our platform enterprise grade, that most companies are not at this step because we just attempted and we tried to get to this point. So it was a risk, it was a failure. We learned from that, and we were able to stood up very fast to be able to drive things forward.
I think that's probably the best method, is like just jump in the deep end.
You must, I think. If you want to dream and to aspire higher, you need to move fast and you need to try, as long as, again, you have enough belief and enough evidence that it works. So it's a balance, but the only person that probably know that, not person, but as a group, is the people running the company very close and knows whether that's the right thing to take that risk.
Nice. And then, so yeah, I mean, obviously the company's relatively still young, went through a large acquisition. What's the achievement that you're most proud of since starting, Jim?
Um, the achievement. To me, it's the team. Actually, I think we've done some great things on the product. We've done some great things on customer satisfaction. We had really good brand outside. Like people talked about Gem all over the place, which I loved. But I think the achievement that I'm proud of the most, and here I'm representing also the founders and the team initially, is really the team that we've built. I think our best brand is the fact that Gem has the best team possible in Israel or ever, like for a startup company. And that to me, the point that I'm most proud of.
Yeah, I love that. And then how do you stay innovative and ahead of your competition?
I think it's a balance. I want to say first, it's about listening to customers, but at the same time, is also listening to customers in a way that is balanced with the way you think about the market. I think with every company that tends to be innovative, you must always listen to the customer, but you also have a role in educating and creating a new reality, like a new way of doing stuff. So it's balancing between valuable feedback that you want to get all the time, as well as leading the way in teaching companies and organizations doing new things in a way that they haven't thought it before. So you need to really firmly believe that what you're doing is right. And I think for Gem, it comes from our experience from the trenches. Like we've been responders, we knew what breaks, and we came and told customers how we think we need to operate. And of course, we got feedback all the time, and customer really shaped the way the product works. But we also, I think, balance that with we know how to do that. Trust us, that will make your life easier. So it's a combination of educating and thinking of things ahead of time, as well as balancing that with customer feedback to drive the most accurate innovation, which is not innovation that you build things for a box. It's innovation that turns things to be very actionable and usable.
Like that, it's like the secret sauce, because you're also including customers in your kind of, I don't know, iteration, it's like an A/B test, and that then helps obviously shape your user experience, user journey. And then they're like, this company's listening, they become part of that fabric. Psychologically, you probably build that safety where they're like, okay, these guys are listening, they're building something that I've told them, this is amazing. And the likelihood is you're probably going to get maybe an extended contract, a renewal, or a big deal with them, because you've built that kind of life cycle. And I think there's many products out there that feel they can just like survey, I don't know, maybe 100 customers, and then that's it. They build a platform, ship it, and then never listen to anyone. I won't name any products, but there's quite a few in the market. So yeah, moving on to the kind of last segment of the episode is advice and reflections. So from people who have obviously scaled companies, did quite well, I think for me, I like to hear about talk me through some of the kind of advice on how, you raise funding, any key metrics people may not think of, anything you think is kind of vital when building a product. So I love to watch these episodes on YouTube where I see people and they go through these struggles of like funding, because it's always the big thing that everyone kind of, I think it's like a number 2 or 3 in Google Trends or something on like, pre-seed, Series A, B, C, and everything else. So is there any kind of, advice you would give people around like how they would raise funding?
Yeah. So I think that every founder has a different approach, but probably there are a few common approaches out there. I can give you my perspective on fundraising, which is eventually it goes down to relationships and the way you build this the right way with partners. Eventually fundraising, it's not about getting the money. I think that is, for some companies, some ideas, some teams is easy. I think it's about finding the right partnership that's good for the company. In many ways, having the founders, this is key because this is the soul of the company, but having the right investors are the team that will not leave the company ever almost like a board seat that is really, really, going with the company from the inception to the end. And I think you really need to pick that hard. And to do that, like investor tests you, investors seek for, for their founders they want to invest. You look for, like, you also need to see who's the right partner for you. And it's not that you come to fundraise and, to prove the idea. They also need to prove that they're the right candidate, for you. So I think it's about really building the right relationship with investors, finding what works, finding who do you want to work with on the board level on a daily basis, on building the company, thinking vision, problems, who would be there for you when the company largely succeeds, who will be there for you when the company really is not in a good spot. You need to have that match. And also, given a good introduction, a good relationship with an investor, that allows them to get to know you, the team, how you think. And again, there are different approaches. Some approaches is to surprise investors with, we're raising money, and that happens tomorrow. My approach, the approach that I've taken, is actually building relationship from early stages, even before we raise money, and then finding the right fit as you build the company. I think for seed, the most important thing is the team, and the founding team, and the founder market fit, whether the founders are the right founder to set and to revolutionize that market, and whether the market is right or not. But I think the team is the most critical point for seed. So you need to just make sure that the team is right to be fundable. I think for A is really about more metrics, but also a little bit about hype, about whether you can execute, to seeing what you've achieved from seed to A. It shouldn't be specific metrics. In some cases it is, $1 million ARR or some other metrics, but it's about what you've been talking that you can achieve and whether you actually got to this point. If you told investor a year ago you're going to get to something, and you matched that, or you even got to higher, that is impressive. I think it's about setting expectation, exceeding them, and proving execution step by step.
I love that. And then is there anything from like a product specific, again, like was there lots of, obviously you and your team worked in instant response, so you had a good understanding of current product market. Was there anything specific that you were like, that's the gap right there, and then we'll build a product towards that gap? Like, was there any kind of catalyst that helped kind of narrow in that? Because obviously that there's, Gem's a kind of unique tool. It's kind of like 2-in-1 as far as I'm concerned. That's how I see it, right? Mm-hmm. So like you're kind of scratching a couple of itches for me. But was there anything you're like, that's the hole right there that we can plug? Was there any kind of research that you done, or was it just?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So of course, everything with Gem started with our experience and seeing the problem from, again, experience. But then you need to understand whether this is a thing. Is it a market? Is it a need? You need to speak with plenty of customers and prospects to see whether this is something relevant. And I think Gem landed in a really, really nice spot alongside two different common products, which is SecOps product, more traditional, and then CSPM or CNAPP product, which is more cloud. But then both of these missed what we were doing. The SOC missed the cloud missed the SOC, and we were like a blue island in a red sea or red ocean, finding a really, really good spot in the market that was. And by the way, we didn't have like 10 companies doing what Gem does. Gem was a very special, unique niche company that solved a gap. Even though all investors didn't actively invest in this area, we just found a niche, went for that because we had our internal truth that this thing is needed. So it's honestly, my advice is also listening to what you think, to your experience, to what customers say. Not always investors know where the world is going.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. And then what's a common myth about entrepreneurship that you'd like to debunk? Because I think, people tend to think that it's all glamorous, there's you're given billions of money, and it's like...
I never had this myth thinking this is glamorous and fun. And usually with new entrepreneurs that are coming to me to get advice, I want to see that they're enough crazy to do this thing to themselves. I think it is fun if you like that. It is glamorous if you enjoy, but it's a lot of suffering. It's a lot of I mean, good suffering, right?
Yeah.
To be truth. I loved it and I love it still. But it's a lot of hard work, dedication. Put the company as the first priority in life in many ways, and you need to be ready for that. Now, by the way, there are many ways of being entrepreneur. That's my way. I think it's about putting everything into that, putting almost kind of your life, your passion into that, and if you're willing to take that, I think that's worth a shot. If not, it's, I don't know. Let's say.
Yeah, I've had people compare it to like either being a parent or like having a puppy, and getting the dog trained, and I've even had someone compare it to being like a farmer, which is quite like, because you're doing so many different things, you're wearing so many different hats. 1 minute you're tending to certain animals, then the next thing you're mopping up after them, and I think that none of this stuff comes easy, and I think a lot of kind of hardship obviously comes to the top of that. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, I think you get a lot of people like influencers or like on social media make it look like it's just so easy, but the reality is it takes a lot of graft to get there. But anyway, so how do you define success both personally and for your company?
Maybe getting acquired is a success. I think that is part of that, but this is not exactly how I would define success. I think for us, it was proving a point or proving value. It's, in my view, I think the most compelling part of being a founder is if it succeeds, that you drive huge value out of zero, out of nothing. You had no people, you had no product, you had no idea in some ways, and then out of nothing, you build an organization that proves value to numerous tens of customers. It's almost impossible when you think about it before you start. So I think proving like the success is across the board. It's how can you bring and build it, like the team of the best people possible. That's such a hard task to do, and if you get that right, it's such a high fulfillment. If you really build a product that drives value, that customers are happy, talk about that, spread the word themselves, that's a huge success. So this is how I measure success, both personally in terms of the ability to lead organization, to build a team, to collaborate, to drive good communication of that, but also to drive such good relationship with customers like yourself, from the beginning to end. It's really hard work, but when it succeeds, that drives a lot of happiness, satisfaction, and fulfillment.
Yeah, absolutely. And then moving on to our kind of last question then of the episode is, I like to call this is kind of like a world exclusive, but is it really? I don't know. But it's like, what's next for you, Arie? What's next for Gem? And obviously that relationship was give me some insight.
So on the acquisition, it's important to say we weren't planning to be acquired too soon. We really were on the verge of getting positively exploded with a lot of traction, leads, etc. Like another fundraising that was really almost even signed. I think for me, the acquisition made a lot of sense. Wiz is such an amazing company, probably the leading vendor today whenever, everything cloud security. And I think collaborating with Wiz to bring the Gem value into a broader scale very, very fast is something that I'm personally fascinated and excited about. It's about continuing the journey of Gem, just 10x in the pace that we can run. Because we have a lot of good infrastructure, we have a lot of good customer base, a lot of go-to-market machine and engine we can work with. And for me, it's a journey of how we translate the experience perspective, everything we've built in, at Gem into this beast and leading company like Wiz, and combining that. I think personally, DNA, etc., Gem and Wiz, and is somewhat can be it's a really, really good match. And I think now myself and the team entirely is really onto this journey of operationalizing that, bringing Gem forward with Wiz Defend as an entire different product, that works with the product, with the Wiz product, to bring this new reality of how cloud meets security operations. So I'm totally committed to this journey.
Yeah, and I'm very excited because for public disclosure, I'm a customer of Wiz and Gem, two excellent products. And again, for anyone listening, go get a proof of concept, proof of value. Speak to them. If you're struggling in certain kind of market spaces like CNAP and everything else, then definitely reach out to both companies, because you might actually be surprised. And like you and I have been building a relationship for some time as well. And again, kind of to conclude the episode, again, you've been a huge inspiration, I think, in our industry as well, Arie. You've scaled this, and after a few years, it's like joined an absolute Goliath. So yeah, I'm super happy for you. And again, I'm proud of what you've achieved as well, Arie. And again, I can't thank you enough for coming on the episode and sharing that knowledge with people, because we often get a lot of people reaching out being like, hey, I'm thinking about building something in stealth. What do you think of this from an identity management provider or non-human identities? We get so many inquiries. We were thinking like we're probably going to turn it into some sort of a middleman VC, I think, at some point in Decloak's history. But anyway, again, Arie, we'll conclude the episode just now. And again, thank you so much for your time. And then, yeah, everyone, please check out what's going on with Wiz and Gem. And again, Arie, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a true pleasure.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you.